The purge and crackdown against any opposition in Kenya by the Jubilee government is at full speed. Friday, February 2nd, 2018 started rather dramatically for Kenyans. Okay? In the early hours of this morning, a whole battalion of policemen armed to the teeth invaded the Runda residence of Miguna Miguna. Now, I want us to take careful note of exactly what happened at Miguna's residence, because it illustrates something extremely disturbing. It shows attitude in the government. Now, ordinarily, when a government acts, a government is supposed to act very officially, according to the law. A government is supposed to follow normal procedure, etc., etc. None of that happened at Miguna Miguna's house. Indeed, what happened at Miguna Miguna's house has left many Kenyans in shock. Apart from the arrest, how it was carried out, what went down, has just left Kenyans in utter and total shock. Now, according to eyewitnesses, the police did not use the gate. Yeah, they went over the fence. Okay? Now, this particular report is unconfirmed. Yeah, because I don't want to believe it. But the very alarming thing here is that everything else that happened at Miguna's house does not contradict that initial report. Yeah, it is consistent with that report. Now, it seems that Miguna Miguna refused them entry, and what followed is that his front door, yeah, was blown down. Yes, you've heard me correctly. It was actually blown down using what is believed to have been a grenade. At the very least, some kind of explosive, because multiple eyewitnesses say that what attracted people's attention to what was happening at Miguna's place at this very early hour in the morning was a very loud explosion. Indeed, photographs of Miguna's front door, or what used to be Miguna's front door, have very clear evidence of an explosion. Indeed, in text messages to the press, when all this was happening, Miguna used the word bomb. Yes, he said they have bombed my house. Okay? Now, what followed was destruction, massive destruction of property inside Miguna Miguna's house. They took his laptop, they took his phone, they took all manner of things. Okay? Indeed, I don't think I'd be exaggerating if I said this is the kind of Rambo-style attack, something that you'd see in a John Rambo movie, yeah, or one of those latest action flicks, yeah, where it is the last scene and the main star is coming in on a revenge mission. That's exactly the scene of Miguna's house. Now, the word revenge I've used very deliberately here, and indeed it is important for our purposes here. And I'll tell you why I use the word revenge. If you follow the order of events, this particular event appears to be a direct response, yeah, and it is designed to appear to have even more force, yeah, than the very forceful statement which Miguna Miguna himself issued yesterday, yeah, where he was responding to the action by the Interior CS, Bwana Matiang'i, to ban the NRM. A statement that ended with the famous Miguna Miguna catchphrase, "Come baby, come." Yeah, and indeed they came. On Miguna's front door, yeah, if you examine the photographs on your screen carefully, you'll notice shoes that appear to be Miguna Miguna's. Now, if you look at the way the shoes are placed, yeah, and the condition of the shoes, yeah, it gives you an idea of how Miguna was arrested, or grabbed, or kidnapped, however you want to look at it, or however you want to refer to it. Because the truth of the matter is that many people would not describe this as an arrest, yeah, and I would have to agree, yeah, this is not a normal arrest. Indeed, even during the darkest days of the Moi dictatorship, people were not arrested with bombs and explosions and shoes flying all over the place. Yeah, there was decorum, there was respect, there was order when an arrest was being made. Even when somebody was being picked up, to be taken for detention. You know, in those days, detention without trial, yeah, where the special branch officers would tell you, wewe unatukana serikali, yeah. So there would be some element of revenge. Even in those days, there is no arrest, there is no abduction political in the history of the Republic of Kenya that matches this one of Miguna Miguna. None. And I challenge anybody, because I'm not an authority, yeah? I challenge anybody to remind me or to tell me of an arrest that came anywhere near the so-called arrest stroke abduction stroke kidnap of Miguna Miguna on the morning of 2nd February 2018. Now, Miguna was then taken to the DCIO, which is in Githunguri, Kiambu County, okay, outside Nairobi completely and very far from Runda. Now, the obvious objective here was to avoid people following up on him, yeah, people coming to see what was happening to him, and so on and so forth. Now, during the Moi days, I was arrested by the political police. And I can tell you firsthand what they used to do in those days was to transfer somebody from police station to police station, okay? What would happen is that every 2 hours they'd come pick you up, take you to another different police station, every 2 hours, and so on and so forth. So that my family and those who were trying to follow up on me, yeah, would rush to a certain police station, and by the time they got there, I was not there anymore. And so we can say that this is indeed an old tactic as far as political arrests, political prisoners are concerned. The other very interesting thing that has come out of the Miguna Miguna arrest is that it is now clear why the major TV stations have remained off air. Now, yesterday there was a court order obtained, and the whole idea, the court order was supposed to order the government to return the TV stations on air. Now, the professional court server, you know, the licensed court server, who was sent with the court order to the Communication Commission of Kenya, had a very interesting experience. They were there very early. In fact, they were visitor number 3. They were ushered in. And when they went to the legal officer and presented the court order, the legal officer received it, asked them to wait, and then left the office. He came back with 2 men dressed in dark suits who introduced themselves as police officers and who arrested this server. Can you believe that? He was held for 3 hours. He was then released and told to go as far away as possible from those premises. And if he was seen in those premises again, quote, he would be risking his life, unquote. Now, this was a strange action because the order had already been served to the Minister of Interior, the ICT Cabinet Secretary as well, yeah, and to the AG, yeah. So really the government had already been served. But the main TV stations in the country remain off air. Anyway, my point was, the idea of keeping the TV stations off air is now becoming rather clear. The whole idea seems to be to make some certain arrests without the public being any wiser, yeah? Not, you know, people not being aware of the arrests that were being made. But the interesting fact here is that shortly after the arrest of Miguna Miguna, protests broke out in Kibra, a slum area, yeah, which ordinarily one would not expect to have access to the few, you know, to the internet, yes, where they'd be able to get access to the major TV stations which reported the arrest. There's been a lot of tension and even skirmishes in many other parts of the country, which has not yet been reported in the mainstream media. For instance, there's a report I received that NASA supporters had attacked a police station, yeah, somewhere in Naivasha. And so if the original idea of keeping the major TV stations shut from the public was to keep the arrests quiet, obviously it has not worked. Now, the latest reports, as I started making this recording, are that TJ Kajwang, whom, as you know, was arrested yesterday, has been released without charges being preferred to him, yeah, or against him, okay? And then I've also received reports that Bwana Miguna Miguna's lawyers have obtained court orders to have him released immediately. And I have unconfirmed reports that indeed he has already been released, but those are unconfirmed, yeah, because I try to be as accurate as possible on this channel. Oh boy, where are we going as a country? Now what we expect are many more arrests to follow over the weekend, okay? Now the first thing here we should note is that the government is on a very slippery slope, yeah, because all these arrests and the charges that could be preferred against the people arrested are to do with the swearing in of His Excellency Raila Odinga as President of Kenya. Now I've heard it amongst inner circles within NASA that what they intend to do is to ask all the people who attended the meeting, and you know there were by some estimates about 1 million people who turned up at Uhuru Park, yeah, is to ask everybody who turned up, yeah, to turn up at a police station, to turn themselves in at a police station, because they were part of the meeting which the government has now classified as an illegal meeting, where an illegal oath took place. Naturally, that kind of confrontation can only be classified as a recipe for disaster. Now, in my view, I do not agree with those people who say that those who have ordered these arrests, those people who are carrying out these arrests, are not aware of the consequences, are not aware of the possible reaction from the large, very large NASA support base. Yeah, I don't agree. Yeah, and that is why I suspect that the whole idea here is to force the government to declare a state of emergency. Or if I can put it in another way, to give the government an excuse to declare a state of emergency. Clearly, the government is feeling very restrained and very much obstructed in what they want to do by this annoying Constitution of 2010. Yeah, to them it seems to be annoying. Now, declaring a state of emergency in the country would give the government sweeping powers to do things which they would ordinarily not do, yeah, under our current constitution. And so, as I said in an earlier recording, we are back to the year 1952 and the colonial state of emergency. But even declaring a state of emergency, in my view, would not be enough to stop what is going to happen in Kenya next. I say this because it seems that NASA are spoiling for a fight. Yeah? What NASA are saying seems to be very well illustrated by Miguna Miguna's words yesterday. Come, baby, come. Bring it on. Yeah? And we have also had NASA people saying, yeah, that since the government is operating outside the Constitution, there would be no reason for NASA to continue operating within the Constitution. Now that is a very alarming statement. Now to some very misled people and to some very confused people, it would appear they seem to suggest that this channel is cheering on, yeah, wishing for a bloodbath, yeah, that this channel is sitting back, yeah, and just wishing against all wishes that a bloodbath happens in Kenya. That is not true. And I challenge anybody to review all the recordings I've made here, and you'll find out that that is not true. I have been weeping for my beloved country, Kenya. I've been weeping for the motherland, Kenya. I've been warning and saying we should not go in certain directions. Yeah, I've been calling for negotiations. Yeah, right even before the swearing in of Raila Odinga. But having said that, I cannot at this point when so many people are relying on this channel for information of the true position, when so many people are relying on me for my view, yeah, based on the information I have, yeah, I cannot let down those people by starting to talk lies on this channel, by starting to create dreams of things which are not there on this channel. So I have to remain very realistic, I have to remain very sober, and I have to tell you nothing but the truth and the whole truth. And the sad truth, my dear fellow Kenyans, is that we are at the edge of the abyss. The country is on the verge of tipping over, and only God can save us. And we continue to pray to God to save us. We continue to pray to God to remember mercy for Kenya. We would be the last people, to wish for a bloodbath. We don't drink blood. What are we going to do with human blood? We don't wish for human blood. Indeed, we cry for the innocent lives, because in such a situation, the people who lose their lives are very poor, poverty-stricken Kenyans. People who are already undergoing so much suffering that when you add the further suffering of civil strife and unrest, it just becomes unbearable, and it just breaks my heart. But folks, that is exactly the position where Kenya is now as I make this recording. If the Jubilee government continues with the crackdowns, obviously those crackdowns are going to be met with some sort of retaliation from the NASA supporters. And indeed we have this problem because of the legitimacy issues of the Jubilee government. That should be very clear. Because if the Jubilee government indeed won the elections, if the Jubilee government indeed has the majority support, then we would not have this problem at all. We would not have the vast majority of Kenyans, anti-government, because if the vast majority of Kenyans voted for this Jubilee government, then the majority of the Kenyans would be pro-government. It's as simple as that. And no amount of propaganda or spinning can spin that truth into something else. That is the naked truth. The government we have today is a minority government elected by a very small minority of the Kenyan population. And that is why a vast majority of the Kenyan population are saying no. And that is why a vast majority of the Kenyan population turned up to witness the swearing in of His Excellency President Raila Odinga. I address him like that, not because I'm a NASA supporter. I address him like that because I'm a firm Democrat. I believe in democracy. I believe in democracy where the majority have their way. And as history has proved time and time again, the majority always end up having their way. Even if the minority temporarily looks like they're winning, in the end the majority will always win. So here is a further test for those who are still doubting. If indeed Jubilee has the majority, then the government crackdown will win the day. It's as simple as that. But if they do not, they will not. But the saddest thing of all is that in all this chaos, in all this confrontation, we will all lose. And that is a fact. We will all be losers, each and every one of us Kenyans. And that is unavoidable. You would think that in all this chaos, somebody would stand up and display some reasoning. But that has not happened. And I'm talking about somebody in government, because the government is the one in power, with all the state machinery, with all the guns, with all the policemen, the army, and so on and so forth. There is really no point to prove here. We know the government is strong. The government is strong, so there's no point to prove. Hakuna haja kupimana nguvu. At the end of the day, it is the ordinary mwananchi who will suffer most. Now, at the end of this recording, I'll once again refer you to the recording I made when I made a prediction around October 10th actually, on what was going to happen after the repeat election and the trouble to expect in Kenya. And this was based on prophecy from men of God I respect, because God still does talk to men, to his servants, and also based on my experience in covering politics, and especially Kenyan politicians. It is possible that we could have a temporary lull, or maybe things would just escalate out of hand very quickly. I don't know. But what I know is that Kenya is already in trouble. And those precautions I talked about in that recording, I believe will be useful to you and to your loved ones. Let us continue to pray for our beloved country. Let us pray to God to remember mercy. Let us pray for lives to be saved. Until next time, this is Kumekucha.